Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity today. My name is Jim Arnold. I'm Superintendent of Schools in Pelham City, Georgia. That's down below Camilla, about 35 miles north of Tallahassee, just to give you a frame of reference there. I don't claim to speak for the Pelham Board of Education, but I will guarantee you that we have discussed these issues. You know, we can talk about some things that I think are important, but it'd probably be easier for you to read what I've written there about where the Common Core originated, who it came from, and that sort of thing. I think that the Common Core is inherently illegal, but I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not about to get into that argument with anybody here. I do think that there are some additional issues that we have to consider here. One is, at a time when educational funds in Georgia are insufficient for the majority of school systems to pay teachers to teach students for 180 days, a little thought was given to the cost of implementing Common Core standards in our state. Now, the current implementation involves videos from the Georgia Department of Education, and I will tell you that in Pelham, Georgia, the response from teachers to this method of teacher training has been underwhelming. I'll tell you that we are not getting additional money for professional development for the implementation of Common Core, and my belief is that the best implementation practices that we can develop come from teachers actually doing the implementation and working together to develop curricula rather than top-down implementation such as Common Core. And here's an even more important point to me. With no money forthcoming for textbooks supporting the Common Core standards, teachers are using the standards themselves to create curricula. When that happens, the standards become the curriculum in our schools. Now, Georgia was quick to join the Common Core, and the rationale given by the Georgia Department of Education was an answer to the problem of student mobility, an opportunity to create an economy of scale, and an opportunity to compare apples to apples when ranking school systems or students. And academic achievement seems to be missing from that particular continuum. I will tell you that student mobility is more of a social than an academic issue. Some of the best and brightest students I taught in my 15 years in Columbus, Georgia, right next to Fort Benning, were from military families to whom transfer was a way of life. They developed an ability to adjust and adapt and were among the best and brightest students that I had the opportunity to teach. I believe that the accent is on the wrong syllable in this case. I also think that the economy of scale is another inappropriate argument. And when you can't afford textbooks, the opportunity to not buy new ones at a cheaper price is hardly an advantage. And I just really don't see comparing schools and states in a rank order serves any educational purpose whatsoever, but is reflective rather of our country's fascination with the quantification of all things, no matter how unquantifiable. The cost of implementing standardized testing that will accompany the Common Core standards has begun an upwards movement on a sliding scale that was never anticipated when these standards were adopted. The latest estimates I've seen for PARCC testing on Common Core standards in ELA and math are from $30 to $37 per student in Georgia. And for a state that currently spends somewhere around $5 or so on testing, that's an astronomical rise that seems to have little support in budget talks at any level. I have heard the governor say flatly that no money for implementation of these tests will be forthcoming from the state. Legislators, I think, are going to be hesitant to come up with the amount to fund PARCC testing. I will tell you that in Pelham, Georgia, if we had a choice between spending $45,000 a year on additional testing or hiring another teacher, we will hire another teacher. Another consideration lost in the rush to implement these wonderful new standards is that of school calendars. The implementation of PARCC testing would require that all students were essentially at the same point in all 46 states in their respective school years for testing to be reliable and valid. All local school systems make room in their calendars for local events. Now, Some of you, I'm sure, will understand the importance of FFA competitions in South Georgia. And imagine trying to explain to a federal official your system needs an exception on the testing day because of the livestock show in Perry that you have 45 students attending and they can't take the test. I see some issues there. Multiply those by 180 Georgia school systems in 46 states. Technology issues for student testing have also been ignored to this point. To test online for every student, specific grade levels, or even selected students in every system in Georgia and in each of the 46 states currently participating in Common Core would create bandwidth and hardware issues beyond our capabilities at this point. Now, please understand, you cannot just have a computer in school and test a student on every computer that you have. There are certain hardware requirements and restrictions that prevent some of the devices we currently own from being used for student testing. Now, I'm not a technology expert, but I will tell you that our IT guy got gray hair when I asked him about the possibility of testing every student within a week's time on an additional test. The projected cost of testing do not include any consideration for solving the hardware, device availability, and bandwidth roadblocks the vast majority of systems in our state would encounter. And also missing from the Common Core is a process or an avenue for appeals or changes or additions or deletions from the standards as they exist now. If we are truly sincere about raising standards in Georgia, I see no reason we could not use the Georgia Performance Standards as our starting point. The Georgia Department of Education said themselves when we were being presented Common Core standards that there was over a 90% correlation between Georgia Performance Standards and Common Core. Using a combination of Georgians from all levels of education, from parents, businesses, and stakeholders, to review and create standards, we would afford a state voice in the creation of these standards specific enough to consider Georgia students and Georgia needs. Georgians would have the opportunities to raise, revise, or add to those standards without the futility of going to a federal bureaucracy in attempts to amend the Common Core. One of the strengths of the American educational system has always been creativity. We do not encourage creativity by requiring every student to learn exactly the same thing at the same time to the same degree. Georgia and Georgians are creative and resourceful enough to develop their own educational standards without federal carrots or intervention. Thank you very much.